Right, so good morning, everyone. Thanks for having me back. This is actually the sixth time I've spent these things. So are they a glutton of punishment or you're desperate? I do wonder, because when Stephen asked me to speak this morning, when I finally said yes, he said, and by the way, he said, I won't be here, I'm on holiday. So I do wonder. So I've got some source sheets coming round, and I've called this an open or shut case, question mark, for reasons which will become clear. I have a vested interest in this one. So as you know, I lay in quite frequently in the shul, and when people are called up for Aliyah, one or two things happen. So when my good friend Avron gets called up, Shas Avram Zusla Levi, he comes up, opens the Sefer Torah, keeps it open, says the bracha, and I keep my BDL on the place while it's open. And then as soon as he finishes the Sefer Torah, Amen, and I'm there. Other people, when they're called up, also good friends, I hasten to add, roll the Sefer Torah shut, sometimes with their zets, right? You know, they'll have a clunk click with every trip, all right? Really shut the place. So then they say the bracha and open it again. Now, when the laning is a new paragraph, it's fine, easy to spot this. But if it's in the middle of a big block of text, and if it's a word like vayomer, which comes several times in that column, it can be a problem to find the place again. And all the Kanakas sitting around, vayomer, vayomer. And I say, I know it's I can't say. I want to say, I know it's vayomer, but he's shut the place, I've lost the place. So we had these two customs. People are very strong about them in Haggai. My great grandfather did it this way, I'm doing the same. I'm reminded, I just come back to me. I had a teacher when I was in Hasmonean. We had a particular teacher, I won't say his name, a lovely man, a secular teacher, not a Kaddish teacher, a lovely, lovely man. But he did try and always show off how much he knew about Yiddishkeit. And sometimes he got it wrong. So he'd say things like, my great-grandfather, Zecher L'Tzias Mitzrayim, was a great Talmud Torah, but I'm just a Derech Eretz. Anyway, I digress. He was a lovely man. I thought it might be interesting to see the basis of these in Haggai that we have, if it's a halachic basis or just some script up. So I've got a few things together here, and we'll get through them hopefully, and you can make your own minds up at the end how we do this. The first one is from the Talmud, Babylonian Talmud, Megillah 32a. Tony Rabbanan, so the rabbis taught, Pater v'roeh galim uvorech. You open up the Sefer Torah, see the place, roll it together, and say the bracha. Then you open it again and read it. Divri Rabbi Meir, Rabbi Huda Omer, Potach v'roeh uvarech v'koreh. Rabbi Huda says, no, open it up, see the place, say the bracha, and read. Nothing about closing it at all. So the Gemara says, my time at Rabbi Meir. What's the rationale of Rabbi Meir? Ula, he holds according to the sage Ula, to Omar Ula. Why do they say that the person reading from the Torah shouldn't assist the translator? In olden times, after every verse of the Torah, a translator would say it in Aramaic, so the general people around would understand it. So why can't the person reading help the translator? They shouldn't say that the translation is actually written in the Sefer Torah. Here also, you shouldn't say the brachot are actually written in the Torah. Rabbi Huda, all right, so Rabbi Huda who says leave it open, what's his reason? He would say Targum ikolamitme. With the Targum, there's a possibility of a confusion, a mistake. Brachot leklamite. With the brachot, nobody's going to assume the brachot after every parasha you're going to write the bracha in the Sefer Torah. Nobody would assume that. Omer Rabbi Zera, Omer Rabbi Matna. Halacha, the halacha is Patech v'roeh uvarech v'koreh. You open it up, see the place, say the bracha, and read it. Nothing about closing it. The Lamad says, Lam halacha Rabbi. Just say halacha Rabbi Huda then. Why repeat the whole thing? Mishum de'afchil hu, because maybe people get mixed up with who said what. So they want to make absolutely clear you leave it open. Okay, so the next Gemara is from Sofrim, very similar. Mishu achei sefer Torah. One who's holding the Sefer Torah. So, two Tanoim, two teachers of the Mishnah, argue about this. I don't know, argue. Have a difference of opinion about this. Chas v'shalom, Rabbi should argue. Chada Omer, Patech v'roeh v'golem v'vorech. One says, open it up, see the place, roll it shut, and say the bracha. Chada Omer, Patech v'roeh v'vorech. One says, open it up, see the place, say the bracha, nothing about closing it. Umata, and what's the reason? This is good. What's the reason for keeping it open? Dichtiv says in the book of Nehemiah, Uvefitcha amdu kol ha'am. Now, when Ezra brought exiles back from Babylon to Israel, right, he gathered them together, read from the Sefer Torah. So it says this verse, he opened the Sefer Torah, the people stood up, Uma kativ batre, what does it say later, the next verse? Vayivorech Ezra et Hashem Elokim HaGadol. Ezra blessed the great God. How do you make God great? Rav Amar Gidla b'Shem Forash. Rav says he used the special name of Hashem. Rav Amar b'Vrachma, with the bracha Gidla, he made him great. Okay, so we got the scenario. Ezra opens the Sefer Torah, people stand up. Ezra says a bracha. Nothing about closing the Sefer Torah for the bracha. So again, we seem to have a lot of good reasons for keeping the Sefer Torah open. Now, the next one is the Sijya of Sajya Gaon. Now, Sajya Gaon, you know, the Gaonim with the after the time of the Tanoim and the Mishnah, Amorim in the Gemara, and then you had the Gaonic period. You had the Savarayim for 100 years before, but Gaonic period. I found it online, Sijya Sajya Gaon, but when I went to copy and paste it, the words all came up backwards. It's a bit like that Morecambe and Wise sketch with Andrew Previn, you know, all the right notes, not necessarily in the right order. But I did photocopied it, so I can actually read out what it said. Sij of Sajya Gaon. It's very interesting. V'im korim b'Torah b'fnei hatzibur. If you're reading the Torah in front of a congregation, tzarech hakori liftoach, the person reading needs to open up below and say, Baruch Hashem havarach, v'oni lo Baruch Hashem havarach v'ed, if he answers, v'gamu, then he says the same, v'yachakein then the Baruch Hashem b'chabanu, okay? And so on and so on. But then it says, V'lo yiftach b'varacho. He shouldn't open with his bracha ad sheyira et pasuk shemimenu yatchil, till he sees the verse from which he will begin reading. And here's the big punchline: V'lo yivarech et bracha rishona. He mustn't say the first bracha ela shehasefer patuach b'yado, unless the sefer is open up in his hand. Okay, so far it's 4-0 for those who say open. So our first contrary opinion comes now with the Tosafot. It's a very strange Tosafot. On that first Gemara, when you get you're on the 1, 2, 3, 4th thing down, the Tosafot. So after you open the Sefer Torah, where you want to read from, the Korei Kohen, and the Kohen should read the first portion. Ulachatchila, and in the first instance, ideally, he should roll it and close it before he says the bracha. So the general populace shouldn't say that the brachot are written inside the Sefer Torah. Avul b'di'evid, but at a pinch, it's not so terrible. Ein lachush shehari, you don't have to worry. Shehari lo shchiche amaret kol kachata, because the general people, I mean, I don't want to say ignorant people, the non-specialist people, should we say, nowadays aren't so forgetful that they think that the brachot written in the Sefer Torah. But after you finish reading, so you need to close it for after you read it for the second bracha. So it seems to be saying, Tosfot, it's best to keep it closed, but if you do hear it open, it's not so terrible. Now, it's 4-1 now, yes? Now, various Rishonim, I'm going to list here, all say keep it open. Rabbeinu Chananah, the Rif, Rav Ramon Yitzchak, that's the Sefer HaEshkol, the Ravad, the Rabya, the B'tzim Clement Shmuel, that's Machzavitri, the Rosh, the Ritva, all of these seem to say, we follow Rav Huda, keep the Sefer Torah open.
What's the score now?
I lost track. You'll see at the end. Okay. Now let's come to a major what the Mishnah Torah of the Rambam, which you've got at the bottom of the first side there. A major what the Rambam lived 1138 to 1204. Right. So the Rambam was alive while that massacre in York was happening in 1190. The Rambam in Sephardi was writing the Mishnah Torah. Every one of the readers, Poter Sefer Torah, should open Sefer Torah. This is assuming at the moment it's not that people read their own portion, of course, which for many years people could. Open Sefer Torah, umabit, and watch. Really look at the makom shehu koreh bo, the place where he's reading. ואחר כך אמרו ברכות השם המבורך, וכל העם עונים ברכות השם המבורך לעם ועד. The Chazir that he says the same thing, and then the big bracha and afterwards, then he carries on until he finishes his portion, rolls the Sefer Torah then, and says Hashem Natzlan Torah, which we do. All right, so you don't close it till afterwards. That seems very, very clear. Another major course person is Rabbi Yosef Karo, who wrote the Bet Yosef and the Shulchan Aruch. I'm going to put one little bit from the Bet Yosef because he's the first to use the word utri chamilta. It's a bothersome matter to have to close it and open it. It's a bothersome matter. Hilkach lo tzarech Rabbi Huda. Therefore, it's not necessary for Rabbi Huda. He feels to close it up. Al basof, afterwards, when you she'ein tzarech yoter golel. When there's no more trouble at the end of the portion, then you roll it shut again. So he introduced this term, terech, trouble, bother. Well, he doesn't say it's a bother for the person laying, a bother for the person called up, or bother for the congregation. He doesn't say who it is, but he just says it's a bother. Now in the Shulchan Aruch, which was written 20 years after the Bet Yosef, he says the following. Kol HaKorim Mavarachin lefanehu lachareha. Everyone called up to read says a bracha before and after the portion. Ufotech HaSefer, and it opens the book, the Sefer Torah, I should say, Kodem Shivarech, before he blesses. V'roeh HaPasuk, and looks at the verse, Shit Sarech L'Hatchabo, he has to begin. V'yachakach Yivarech, and then says the bracha. Well, and afterwards, Shikara Golel Mvarech. Afterwards is read, he rolls it up. So it seems to be again, leave it open. Haggah, now this is the gloss, Rabbi Moshe Isserles, the Ramah, wrote an Ashkenazi gloss to the Shulchan Aruch. So he says now, Uveshah shemavarech bracha rishona, and when he says the first bracha, Yafoch panav el hatzad, should turn his face to the side. Shelo yehed nireh kimvarech min haTorah. So it wouldn't look as if he's saying a bracha from the Torah. Again, so it must be open at the time. And the kolbo is interesting. It's a collection of rabbinical statements. The authorship is unknown. We don't know who wrote Kolbo. It's a collection of things, but there's a gloss also. Veneer Ali says in Kolbo, Shihafoch panaflet tzad smala, should turn to the left. Come back to that later if there's time. So Rabbi Karo, Yosef Karo, and Rabbi Moshe Isserles, again, should be open, although one says turn away even so. Now, well-known commentaries on the Shulchan Aruch, the Bach and the Taz, both also say Torah should be held open during it, although they disagree about turning aside. They say you should focus on the object of your bracha. The Taz also quotes the Maharshal, Rosh Shlomo Luria, also says Torah should be kept open. So I'm not biased at all, by the way, with all this. Okay. The Magen Avraham, another commentary on Orach Chaim, that's right from Gobina, mentions one of the few votes who say keep it closed, and that's Rabbi Yitzchok Luria, the Arizal, who actually writes keep it closed. But he was a leading rabbi in Tzafat. So let's move on now on to the Vilna Gaon, Bir Hagra, the Vilna Gaon. I only put 3 was there. He's a Mishum Tirchot Tzibura. So he's actually saying now it's a problem for the congregation. You close the Torah, open it out, puff around, find the place. It's not for the congregation. It's delaying them. So he uses that one. So the Vilna Gaon, definitely keep it open. He does say you should turn your head away. But again, he says Tirchot Tzibur. The Aruch HaShulchan also says keep it open. And seems to agree with the Ramah about turning to the side. And the Kolba, a bit out of sync because the Kolba was 13th, 14th century, but I did find the Kolba quite interesting here. For Omid HaKore, the reader gets up, Fatech HaSefer opens the book, the Sefer, the Rot Ma'ikra, to see what should be read, the Gulalah, and rolls it closed in Varech. There are opinions that you shouldn't roll it. Ella patech v'reim v'arech. Look, see, say the bracha. V'chein dat ha-Ramat Moshe. So is the opinion of the Rambam, Maimonides. V'yesh omrim sheyesh lo l'hafach panav. There is opinion that you should turn your head aside. Shlo yireh ki la bracha k'tub Torah. So it's a bit half-hearted, I think, the Kolbar. He's saying roll it close, but then he says, but the Maimonides, the great Rambam, says keep it open. So it's a bit half-hearted, his support for keeping it closed. We came more up to date now. The next one is the Chofetz Chaim, from Yisrael Meir Kagan, the Chofetz Chaim who wrote the Mishnah Brura. In his commentary on the Shulchan Aruch, he says, "V'roy hapasuk." When the Shulchan says, "Look at the verse," K'dei yada al mashim. You need to know it's in the bracha on. All right. If you're making kiddush, you hold up the kiddush cup. This is what you make. If you want to make a bracha bit on the apple, you hold up the apple. So he said, if you're saying a bracha on the Torah, you should look at the Torah, see what you're making the bracha on. V'achakach yivarech, and afterwards bless. Say, Ratzalami, you want to say she'ein sarich ligal. You don't need to hold it closed. Bishat bracha. Okay, at the time of the blessing, and you don't need to worry. Shema yomru bracha to Torah. Okay, so again, he is saying keep it open, and that reason again, mishum tirichot tzibura. It's not fair to make the congregation wait till you find the place again and read. He also wrote, of course, the Biur Halacha, notes that some close it, but they don't have to because we follow Rabbi Meir. And the Biur Halacha concludes, each community should follow its own minhag. And the minhag in Edgware is always, let's argue about it. So the Mishnah Brura definitely prefers, he says in a later bit that I haven't written here, rather than turning aside, which might look like inside the Torah, close your eyes when you say the bracha. That's his suggestion, but it should be open. So more up to the opinion is Rabbi Yosef Kappa, whom you may not have heard. He only died in the year 2000. He was a Yemenite Israeli authority, a Dayan in the Supreme Court in Israel. He strongly advocates for leaving the Torah scroll open and looking at it when you say the bracha, so it's quick to read it straight away, and he doesn't feel there's any insult to the Torah by saying a bracha. So to summarize, the overwhelming majority view is the Torah scroll should be kept open. The Tosafot one is very difficult to understand. Only the Kolbo and the Arizal really support that it should be closed, and even then the Kolbo mentions Maimonides' opinion. The fact that Yerushalmi and Bavli support be open and give the reason. Ezra kept it open when he read from Sefer Torah. I mean, what stronger view could you have than that? He doesn't. The keeping the Torah open during the open blessing means you can read it quickly, and it seems disrespectful to turn away from the Torah. There's a funny note in the Art Scroll. Now, I don't like criticizing Dayan Art Scroll, but in the footnote on Megillah there, he actually says Rabbi Huda would agree that you may keep it open, but it's better to keep it closed. And that's the view of Tosfot. But Art Scroll doesn't mention that Tosfot is really a very minority view, right? Which I think it should mention. Now, I'm not a rabbi. I don't paskin. Even if I was a rabbi, I'm not the Morad Yatra, I'm not the rabbi here, so I certainly wouldn't paskin. And Chas v'shalom to anybody what they should and shouldn't do, and about your own strongly held convictions. But if you don't feel very strongly, can I politely suggest have Rachmanos on the Pulbal Kriya and leave it open? Another thought, one might wonder, why do the rabbis, we've seen it as some, is a lot more, you know, the Iri and the Lechem, Yehuda, Kesef Mishnah, loads of rabbis all comment on this. Why are they spending hundreds of hours, all this energy, talking about, does it matter open or closed? Who cares? But it does matter, because they want to have the best way that they see of showing kavod to the Torah. So one thing we can all take away from this is that we should really make every effort to show kavod to the Torah. So for my original question, open or shut, well, if you look at the list at the end of my source sheets, all right, open versus shut, I rest my case, my lads. Thank you very much.
Thank you very, very much, Reverend Shaw.
You were saying one of the sources was it Yosef Karo or Pulver?
Yeah.
He turned to the left.